What if I told you that being charming has nothing to do with being liked by everyone? In fact, the most magnetic people don't seek validation or chase approval. They control the energy of every interaction with quiet precision. They know how to make others feel truly seen, deeply heard, and genuinely remembered, without ever losing their own identity in the process. This isn't fake. It's not manipulation. It's the art of connection, refined by ancient Stoics, mastered by emotionally intelligent leaders, and misunderstood by most. Today, you're going to learn 7 subtle but powerful habits that can instantly make people feel special around you. When used with honest intentions, these habits won't just help you connect, they'll leave a lasting impression, a feeling that when people are around you, they matter. And in a world where so many feel invisible, that's a rare gift. If you find value in learning how to live with more intention and influence through Stoic wisdom, then tap that like button and hit subscribe. Here at Stoic 101, we don't just talk about philosophy, we use it to thrive in the real world. Number 1, use names subtly. There's something quietly powerful about hearing your name. Not shouted, not repeated endlessly, just spoken deliberately. Your name is more than a label. It's your identity, your history, your ego wrapped into a single word. And when someone uses it with care, it makes you feel seen, valued. In a world where attention is fleeting and people are often just waiting to speak instead of truly listening, hearing your name at the right moment can feel like a gift. But like all valuable things, when overused, that gift quickly turns into something hollow. And the Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You must build your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible." It's not about quantity, it's about intention. That same principle applies to how we use people's names. When you use a name at the right time, it creates connection. When you use it too much, it feels like a trick. Let's be honest, we've all heard people try too hard. That's a great question, Mike. I totally agree, Mike. Honestly, Mike, you feel it? It's awkward. It's robotic. It doesn't feel personal. It feels like a sales pitch. And that's the opposite of charm. Charm in its most authentic form comes from being present, not performative. From listening closely, speaking less, and acting with restraint. The Stoic kind of charm, instead of forcing connection, try doing what Barack Obama did during his town halls. He'd listen, fully, quietly. Then when he responded, he'd often say the person's name just once. That's a great question, Jasmine. It was soft, direct, Subtly, no fluff. And because it was rare, it felt real. That one moment of recognition created warmth and trust. Not because of repetition, but because of timing. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." The same logic applies to names. If you're using someone's name 5 times in a conversation, ask yourself, why? Are you doing it to connect or to impress? Real connection doesn't need a script. It needs sincerity, and sincerity shows up in restraint. So instead of using someone's name to sound friendly, save it for when it counts. Use it when affirming something meaningful, when wrapping up a heartfelt point, or when thanking them. That one intentional use lands harder than 5 forced ones. Let's ground this in something real. Think of someone you deeply respect, maybe a teacher, a mentor, or a boss. Now ask yourself, did they make you feel important because they said your name a dozen times? Or was it because when they did say your name, it felt like they meant it? Seneca once wrote, "Say what you believe, and believe what you say." That applies here perfectly. When you speak someone's name, mean it. Don't use it as a tactic. Use it as acknowledgement. Use it to say, "I'm here with you. I see or see you. I hear you." Here's something practical you can try. The next time you're talking with someone, hold back on using their name at first. Let the conversation unfold naturally. Then when they share something personal, insightful, or vulnerable, Say their name just once. Like, "That's a really thoughtful insight, Daniel." Sure, thanks for opening up, Priya. I respect that. Sure. That single moment will carry more emotional weight than if you'd use their name every 2 minutes. And here's the Stoic wisdom that ties it all together. Everything meaningful lives in balance, in restraint, in timing. Just as the Stoics train themselves to master their impulses, so should we train ourselves in the art of deliberate speech. That includes when and how we use a person's name. People won't always remember everything you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And sometimes the smallest things, like saying someone's name once at just the right time, can leave the deepest impression. So no, charm isn't about being the loudest or the most energetic person in the room. It's about precision, presence, and most of all, respect. Respect for the person you're speaking to, and respect for the moment you're sharing. Use names, but use them like a Stoic would, with care, with purpose, and only when it truly matters. Number 2, listen to, understand, not to respond. Most people don't actually listen. They wait. They nod, smile, and pretend to be present, but inside they're simply rehearsing what they'll say next. That's not listening. That's waiting for your turn. And in the eyes of the Stoics, it's a subtle form of arrogance. Because when you prioritize your own voice over someone else's words, you're putting your ego first. Epictetus taught that we should listen to others with the intention of understanding, not of defeating them. This wasn't just about arguments. It was about presence, discipline, humility. Because real listening requires something most people struggle with: silence. And not just the absence of sound, but the quieting of your inner noise. We live in a world obsessed with talking. Social media rewards hot takes, conversations get cut off with interruptions, and silence feels awkward. But charm, the kind that truly touches people, is born in those silent spaces where you give someone else your full attention, without rushing to insert your own story. Consider the great leader Nelson Mandela. One of his greatest traits wasn't his ability to speak. It was his ability to listen. When he entered a room, he didn't dominate the space. He observed, he absorbed, and people walked away not thinking, "What a charismatic speaker," but rather, "He really heard me." That is influence through humility. Now contrast that with the everyday experience of being interrupted. You've probably had moments where someone cuts you off mid-sentence just to share their version of the story. How does it feel? Dismissive, frustrating, like your words didn't matter. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid. True listening is a discipline. It means holding back the urge to fix, to compare, to insert your anecdote. It means choosing to be fully in the moment with someone, not halfway in your head planning your reply. And the Stoics practiced this relentlessly. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor of the Roman Empire, journaled constantly about humility. He reminded himself daily that everyone he spoke to had value, something to teach him, no matter their status. That's the mindset we need. When someone is talking to you, they're not just sharing information. They're revealing a piece of their world. And if you truly want to make someone feel special, give them the rarest gift of all, your undivided attention. No multitasking, no thinking 3 steps ahead, just stillness and listening. Let's break this down into something actionable. The next time someone is speaking to you, pause, make eye contact. Don't just nod, actually follow their thoughts. And here's a small but powerful trick. Wait 2 seconds after they finish speaking before you respond. This does 2 things. First, it forces you to process what they actually said. Second, it signals to them that you're not just reacting, you're reflecting. And when you do respond, ask a clarifying question. Something like, "What happened next?" Or "How did that make you feel?" Not only does this deepen the conversation, but it also proves that you are really listening. That's when people start to feel safe with you, seen by you, drawn to you, That's real charm, not in what you say, but in how you make someone else feel heard. Seneca once wrote, "No man learns except by listening." And yet so many of us walk through life thinking we already know enough. But listening isn't just for learning, it's for connecting. When you truly listen to someone, you tell them, "You matter. Your experience matters. Your emotions are valid." And in a world where most people feel invisible, that's magnetic. There's a reason why therapists and counselors who say very little are often described as comforting or trustworthy. It's because their silence makes room for others to unfold. That same principle applies to everyday conversations. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be the quietest long enough to let others speak their truth. So the next time you're in a conversation, resist the urge to relate everything back to yourself. Don't rush to deliver the perfect comeback or the funniest story. Just be still, be curious, be fully there. Because listening to understand isn't passive. It's powerful, it's a Stoic, and it's how you make others feel important without ever needing to say, "Look at me." Number 3, end conversations first on a high note. Most people don't know when to stop talking. They confuse more words with more connection, more time with more value. But the truth is, overstaying, even in conversation, can slowly dissolve the magic of an interaction. The Stoics understood this deeply. As Seneca once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." And sometimes the greatest remedy for fading charm is exit. Knowing when to leave a conversation is a subtle but powerful social art. It's the ability to recognize the peak of a moment and step away before it begins to decline. Just like a good story or a compelling film, you want to leave the audience wanting more, not glancing at the clock. We've all experienced this. You're in a great conversation, it flows effortlessly, you're laughing, nodding, and then it keeps going and going. And suddenly, the energy shifts. The mood flattens. The spark fades. What was once memorable becomes mediocre. Now think about this. What if you had left 2 minutes earlier? What if you had ended on the high? You would have left behind a glowing impression. You'd be remembered as someone who brought value and knew when to leave. This is where the Stoic virtue of temperance comes into play. Temperance is about self-restraint, not because you're afraid, but because you understand timing. Marcus Aurelius urged himself daily to practice discretion in all things. Even speech, even presence. Especially presence. Let's look at George Clooney, not just as a Hollywood actor, but as someone famously known for controlling the rhythm of social interaction. Clooney is charismatic not only because of what he says, but because of when he chooses to leave. On talk shows, he always ends with a smile, a thank you, and sometimes even walks off on a joke. He doesn't drag it out. He knows the final impression sticks harder than the first. In practical terms, this means learning to sense when the energy is at its peak, and then gracefully stepping away. You don't need to fake an excuse or suddenly disappear. It's about gently signaling closure while the warmth is still present. For example, "I've really enjoyed this talk. I'm going to remember that story," or "I'm glad we had this moment. Let's pick it up again soon." The person you're speaking with won't feel dismissed. They'll feel honored. Why? Because you left when the energy was still alive. You gave them the emotional gift of parting with joy rather than fatigue. In Stoic thinking, this also relates to the concept of impermanence. Everything ends. Every meeting, every conversation, every day. The Stoics embraced this truth not with fear, but with elegance. They believed in acting wisely within each limited moment. If we apply that same mindset to conversations, we begin to see that timing our exits is a reflection of emotional intelligence and inner discipline. So how do you know when to leave? It starts with awareness. Pay close attention to the other person's body language. Are their responses getting shorter? Are they glancing around? Has the laughter settled? These are signs that the moment is plateauing. Don't ignore them. Use them. Second, train yourself to be comfortable with incompletion. That may sound strange, but not every conversation has to end with a bow, a final joke, or a life-changing insight. Sometimes the best ending is simply knowing when to pause. Think of Jerry Seinfeld. He famously ended his hit show Seinfeld while it was still on top. He walked away when the ratings were high and the audience still craved more. Many questioned it, but years later, it's seen as a genius move. The show is remembered not for how it declined, but for how it never did. That's the essence of ending on a high note. You can apply the same principle to your everyday interactions. Don't try to be the longest talker at the party. Be the one they remember. Leave while the smile is still fresh, the emotion still strong. That's when the memory locks in. As Epictetus said, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. If you want to be remembered as someone who lifts people, who brings lightness, insight, and care, then be mindful of your exits. The last moment is often the one people replay in their heads. Let it be strong. So no, ending a conversation early isn't rude. It's respectful. To them, to yourself, to the energy you've created. Leave people not with everything you could have said, but with everything they needed to feel. Because real charm isn't about stretching a moment. It's about sculpting it. Ending with grace is how you make sure they feel special long after you're gone. Number 4, remember small details. In a world where most people are too busy waiting for their turn to speak, simply remembering a small detail about someone can feel like a rare gift. Yet this is one of the most overlooked yet powerful forms of human charm. It's not about showing off a perfect memory. It's about demonstrating that you care enough to notice. Stoic philosophy teaches that attention is a form of respect. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But Stoics didn't just listen. They remembered not to manipulate others, but because they valued the unique experience of each person they met. Think about someone in your life who recalled something small about you. Your favorite coffee, a book you once mentioned, or a personal challenge you shared. How did that make you feel? Probably warm, surprised, maybe even emotional. That's the power of small details. They make people feel seen. Consider Barack Obama. One reason people felt deeply connected to him wasn't just his charisma or speeches, it was his attention to detail. Staff and citizens alike have shared stories of how Obama remembered things mentioned in passing months before. A child's name, a dream job, a difficult moment. These weren't grand gestures, but left lasting impressions because they signaled that he truly noticed. In Stoic terms, this practice aligns with the virtue of justice. Not just fairness, but giving each person their due. Remembering a detail, even something as simple as a person's preferred pronouns or a sibling's name, is an act of social justice in miniature. It says, "I see you. You matter enough for me to carry a piece of you with me." So, how do you develop this habit? First, learn to listen with intention, not passively but actively. Treat the words people offer as rare coins to be treasured. Capture them in the moment. If necessary, jot notes down afterward. Don't trust memory alone, build it intentionally. Second, contextualize details. Instead of remembering he likes jazz, remember, he said jazz reminds him of his late grandfather who played saxophone in New Orleans. History. That turns a fact into a story. And stories stick. Third, use the details sparingly but meaningfully. Don't throw them around to impress. Wait for the right moment. For example, if someone mentioned a big interview weeks ago, saying, "How did your meeting at Deloitte go?" creates a moment of emotional recognition. That's unforgettable. Stoics taught us to live with presence and awareness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to meet difficult people with grace. He wrote in, "When you wake up, tell yourself, today I will deal with people who are interfering, ungrateful, arrogant. Shurita one." But this wasn't an excuse to ignore them. It was preparation to still treat them with care and mindful attention. That's what remembering small details truly is. Mindful attention in action. Now compare this with what most people do. They forget names. Ask the same questions repeatedly. Treat others like replaceable data points. When they do remember, it's often to gain advantage, not to elevate. Fred Rogers, the beloved Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood host, wasn't a Stoic but embodied many Stoic principles. He took time to learn the names of everyone on set. He remembered birthdays and personal stories shared with him. This wasn't performance, it was presence. And it created a sense of safety and value. You don't need a photographic memory, just a sincere, hard, and disciplined mind. Write notes if needed. Reflect on what makes people light up, then revisit that joy later. Here's what happens when you remember small details. People associate you with warmth, presence, and care. You become a mirror reflecting their importance back at them, creating connections that last far beyond the conversation. In today's fast-paced, noisy world, being the person who slows down enough to remember is how you truly stand out. So if you want to be charming, not manipulatively, but deeply human, start here. See people, remember them, carry their stories, reflect them back at the right moment. Because, as the Stoics taught us, life is fleeting. The question is, what kind of presence do you want to leave in others' minds? Number 5, be vulnerable strategically. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as weakness or oversharing, but in truth, it is one of the most powerful tools for genuine connection and lasting charm. The Stoics, famous for their discipline and emotional control, did not reject vulnerability. Instead, they embraced it with wisdom and intentionality. Vulnerability is not about revealing everything, but about sharing just enough to be relatable while maintaining your composure and dignity. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic emperors, showed vulnerability not by exposing every fear or doubt, but by honestly acknowledging his humanity in his meditations. He wrote about his struggles with anger, frustration, and the enormous burden of ruling an empire. This honest reflection, framed with calm and control, made him relatable, not distant. That delicate balance is what creates true charm, being human enough to connect, but strong enough to inspire. Why does strategic vulnerability work so well? Because it breaks down walls without costing respect. It signals, I trust you enough to share this part of me. This trust encourages others to open up as well, deepening the connection. Take Brené Brown, a modern expert on vulnerability. She emphasizes that vulnerability is the foundation of connection and courage. But she also warns about the dangers of indiscriminate sharing. Oversharing personal fears or trauma can make others uncomfortable or cause you to appear unstable. Instead, be intentional and thoughtful about what and when you share. Similarly, Stoics believed in mastering emotions, not suppressing them. Seneca said, "No man is brave who does not think himself so." Vulnerability requires courage, the bravery to reveal your true self while maintaining self-control. The charm lies precisely in that courage. In practice, strategic vulnerability means sharing lessons learned from failures rather than dumping unresolved problems. For instance, an entrepreneur might say, "When I started my first business, I made costly mistakes, but those lessons shaped the leader I am today." This invites empathy and respect, rather than pity or judgment. Abraham Lincoln offers a historical example. He was admired not only for his leadership, but for openly acknowledging his bouts with depression, rare for his time. By sharing enough vulnerability in speeches and letters, he connected deeply with people, showing strength through honesty. Stoicism also teaches the importance of control, knowing what is within your power and what isn't. Sharing vulnerability strategically means managing the narrative, choosing which parts of your story foster connection and which are better kept private. Timing is also key. Vulnerability is most impactful when revealed at the right moment. Imagine a leader who shows weakness only in crisis, but otherwise appears composed. This contrast makes their honesty more powerful. On the other hand, sharing too much too soon can overwhelm others and diminish your influence. Moving to charm, vulnerability creates authenticity. In a world full of mass, people crave realness. Sharing your true self thoughtfully makes you magnetic. It shows confidence, not arrogance, because you are comfortable with who you are. Oprah Winfrey embodies this beautifully. Her success stems not just from talent, but from her ability to be vulnerably open on her show, sharing stories of hardship and triumph. Yet she never loses control or dignity. This openness draws millions into her world, making her deeply charming and trusted. From a Stoic point of view, vulnerability also ties to the virtue of courage. Revealing your truth, knowing the risk of judgment, is an act of bravery. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Seneca, choosing to be vulnerable wisely is responding with courage and intention. Moreover, vulnerability sets boundaries. It says, "Here is what I share, and this is what I protect." This balance prevents you from becoming a doormat while encouraging genuine closeness. To develop strategic vulnerability, begin by reflecting on your stories. What lessons shaped you? What struggles made you stronger? Practice sharing these selectively and observe how people respond. Notice the difference between revealing your authentic self and hiding behind masks. Ultimately, being vulnerably strategic is emotional intelligence, knowing how much to share, with whom, and when. It is a dance between openness and self-respect, humility and strength. In conclusion, vulnerability is not a weakness to hide, but a strength to wield wisely. The Stoics teach us that true charm comes from embracing human imperfection with courage and control. By sharing your authentic self thoughtfully, you create powerful connections that linger long after the conversation ends. Number 6, ask deep questions but don't answer. One of the most subtle yet powerful ways to make people feel special is to place the spotlight fully on them by asking deep, thought-provoking questions and then resisting the urge to answer those questions yourself. This technique, while seemingly simple, has a profound impact. The Stoics understood the power of inquiry, knowing true wisdom often arises from thoughtful questioning, not just speaking. Mastering this art invites others into a space where they feel truly seen and valued. Asking questions might seem straightforward, but the key lies in which questions you ask and how. Stoicism teaches that curiosity should be rooted in genuine interest and respect for the other person's inner world. Instead of superficial small talk, ask questions that encourage others to explore their values, experiences, and emotions. For example, rather than, "How was your day?" consider what moment today challenged you and how did you respond? This matters because deep questions show you care about what's meaningful to them, signaling a willingness to briefly enter their inner life. This fosters connections beyond typical social interactions. The Stoic philosopher Socrates, via the Socratic method, mastered this. His questioning wasn't to display knowledge, but to help others uncover inner truths, prompting deep thought and authentic engagement, making them feel valued. Oprah Winfrey's interviewing success largely stems from asking insightful questions that prompt authentic self-revelation. Instead of dominating, she gently guides with open-ended questions, creating space for vulnerability and depth, making guests feel honored and audiences captivated. Equally important is restraining yourself from answering. While tempting to share your perspective or stories, doing so shifts focus from the other person. Stoics valued impulse control. As Epictetus reminds us, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond. Choosing silence or gentle prompts over immediate answers demonstrates respect and self-control, allowing the other person to shine. This approach also builds mystery and intrigue, paradoxically increasing your charm. Not revealing everything immediately draws people in, curious to learn more over time. This slow unveiling, creating anticipation and deeper engagement. Barack Obama, known for eloquence and charisma, often asked carefully framed questions in discussions without immediately offering his views. This prompted thoughtful responses and projected his calm confidence. Asking deep questions also encourages reflection for both answerer and listener, cultivating Stoic virtues like wisdom and empathy. Listening fully without interrupting builds trust and signals genuine care. So, how can you develop this skill, transitioning from Stoic wisdom to practical application? Start by preparing a mental toolkit of open-ended questions that invite exploration. Examples include, what experience has shaped your perspective most deeply? Or, how do you find meaning in difficult times? Practice active listening, where your goal is to understand, not merely to reply. Note the power of pauses after asking. Silence, though sometimes uncomfortable, is essential, giving the other person space to think and speak. Resist filling silences. Patience yields richer conversations. Crucially, avoid manipulative questioning, which contradicts Stoic integrity. Approach conversations with authentic curiosity and kindness. The goal is connection, not control. Essentially, asking deep questions while withholding your answers strategically elevates others and deepens connections. It shows confidence, no need to dominate to be respected, and fosters an environment for safe, full self-expression. This technique aligns with Stoic self-mastery. Controlling your urge to respond practices patience and presence. Encouraging others' expression cultivates humility and compassion. Remember Socrates' wisdom. I know that I am intelligent because I know that I know nothing. Embracing the curious questioner role, not the constant speaker, creates magnetic charm, making others feel special by valuing their insights over your voice. Ultimately, this power lies in the gift of attention. In a distracted world, undivided, thoughtful attention is a rare, beautiful kindness. It makes them feel truly special. The essence of lasting charm. Number 7. Be vulnerable strategically. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as a sign of weakness, yet it is one of the most courageous and magnetic qualities a person can exhibit when wielded with intention and control. Stoic philosophy teaches that true strength lies not in hiding our flaws, but in mastering ourselves and revealing parts of our humanity that encourage genuine connection. To be vulnerable strategically means sharing enough to be relatable and authentic, but not so much that you lose your composure or control over the interaction. Why is this important? People naturally gravitate toward those who are genuine and relatable. When you allow yourself to be seen, not as flawless, but as someone who faces struggles, you create a powerful bond. This vulnerability invites others to open up, deepening trust and emotional connection. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, often reflected honestly on his own shortcomings, not to wallow in self-pity, but to accept his humanity and grow stronger through it. At the same time, strategic vulnerability is not about oversharing or offloading emotional burdens indiscriminately. Epictetus taught that wisdom includes knowing when and how much to reveal. The goal is not to burden others or seek pity, but to humanize yourself and foster empathy. This is emotional intelligence, being aware of others' readiness to receive your openness and responding appropriately. Look at Nelson Mandela. After 27 years imprisoned, Mandela emerged not with bitterness, but with humility and openness about his struggles. His willingness to share his pain and hope for reconciliation inspired millions worldwide. Yet he maintained dignity and control, never appearing defeated or weak. This careful balance between vulnerability and strength made him profoundly charismatic and influential. Similarly, Brené Brown, a leading researcher on vulnerability, shows how it builds trust and creativity in relationships and leadership. However, she emphasizes that vulnerability must be intentional and measured, not reckless. When leaders share their struggles strategically, they invite authentic connection and make others feel genuinely valued. How can you practice strategic vulnerability? Begin by reflecting on what parts of yourself are safe and appropriate to share in each context or relationship. This requires self-awareness and sound judgment, which the Stoics call practical wisdom. For example, revealing a challenge in a professional setting can humanize you and build rapport, but oversharing personal details may undermine respect or distract from your purpose. Also, consider the timing and tone of your vulnerability. Stoicism encourages us to maintain calmness and presence, even while expressing emotion. Instead of reactive or uncontrolled disclosures, choose moments when your vulnerability adds meaning and depth. Communicate feelings like doubt, fear, or regret, not to complain, but to invite understanding and connection. Seneca advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Applying this wisdom means being mindful of whom you reveal your vulnerabilities to. Genuine connections thrive when vulnerability is mutual and respected, but sharing openly with manipulative or unsupportive people can be harmful. Furthermore, strategic vulnerability paradoxically increases your influence. When people see you as authentic and courageous, they trust you more. They don't expect perfection, but appreciate honesty. This trust builds rapport, making you memorable and magnetic. The Stoics prized authenticity because it frees you from pretenses and fosters genuine relationships rooted in truths. On a deeper level, embracing vulnerability aligns with the Stoic principle of accepting what we cannot control, our emotions, hardships, and flaws, and choosing how to face them. Acknowledging fear or insecurity shows strength and reminds others that imperfection is universal, breaking down barriers of isolation and loneliness. Consider Abraham Lincoln, whose letters and speeches reveal his struggles with depression and self-doubt. By acknowledging these feelings openly at times, he connected deeply with a fractured nation. His vulnerability did not diminish his leadership. It enhanced his empathy and wisdom, inspiring trust and unity. Practically, start small. Share a minor challenge or insight related to the current conversation. Pay attention to how people respond and adjust your openness accordingly. Over time, you'll develop an intuitive sense of when and how much vulnerability to share. This gradual approach mirrors the Stoic practice of self-discipline and continual improvement. In summary, being vulnerable strategically is about balancing authenticity with self-control. It is a form of charm rooted in honesty, courage, and emotional intelligence. When done well, it creates space for real connection, trust, and respect. It shows that you are confident enough to be imperfect and wise enough to know when and how to reveal it. Ultimately, the Stoics teach that our humanity, including flaws and fears, is not something to hide but to embrace thoughtfully. By doing so, you become not only more charming, but also more resilient and inspiring. This is the lasting impression that draws people to you and makes them feel genuinely special. Charm isn't about trying to please everyone or being liked by all. Instead, it's about mastering how you interact to make others feel genuinely seen, heard, and valued. The 7 habits we explored today aren't tricks or manipulations. They are mindful ways to create meaningful connections that last. When you practice them with good intentions, you don't just become more charming, you become someone who leaves a positive impact wherever you go. Remember, the true power of charm lies in balance, between honesty and control, between openness and discretion, and most importantly, between making others feel special and maintaining your own dignity. As the Stoics remind us, living with wisdom means cultivating relationships that enrich both yourself and those around you. If you found value in these insights, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more wisdom and practical philosophy coming your way to help you grow and connect deeply in your everyday life. Hit the bell so you never miss an update and join our community of mindful learners. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep growing, keep connecting, and keep living with intention.